Well,
Yeah.
all right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Injustice for All with Judge Joe Brown. Yes, you see me on the screen. Usually you don't. And the only reason why you see me on the screen is because we have a special guest, Miss Rosemary out of Ohio. She's running for Congress, District 1 of Ohio, Republican ticket. So she's going to be the first person we bring up to talk to. She's going to, she's been on the show before on the Man Up Show. So she's going to give us an update on her campaign, talk about her agenda. And of course, we have to talk about Jasmine Crockett and her defeat this week from the Texas Senate. What went wrong and the sister girl era is done with. And then I also want to ask Rosemary a question when it comes to Black people and political funding, right? And then, Judge, we got to talk about the U.S. Iran war, Operation Fury. Got to talk about that as well to give people an update on that. So let's bring in Miss Rose Marie. Oh, hi, Judge.
Hello there.
Hi.
See, I'm being proper today.
How are you doing, Miss Rosemary Henry? Oglesby. Always tear up your last name.
I know, it's okay. And that's why I told everybody, just call me Rosemary or call me Miss Rosemary. Oglesby Henry. Oglesby Henry.
Miss
There you go. Oglesby Henry.
I got it. I've encountered Oglesbys in the past. I grew up on the West Coast, and I had a sojourn in D.C. and Chicago and all of the other places where they speak English without quite such a drawl.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I got that right. There you go. Okay.
Welcome back. Love having you back on. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, so my name is Rosemary Oglesby Henry. I am a Republican candidate for U.S. Congress, 1st District. And if you are in Ohio, that is the districts of Clinton County, Warren County, and Hamilton County, at least certain parts of Hamilton County, mostly Cincinnati, which we know is blue. but yeah, so Hamilton County, Warren County, and Clinton County.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell us how the campaign is going since the last time you've been on the show. How's it going?
Yeah, so the campaign is going well. I think we're down to the primary is May the 5th. So what is this? What month is this? April, what is it? March, April, May. So we've got a little over a month or so. So everybody's kind of driving up marketing and media. We're about to start our door knocking. That's going to be a lot of fun, and out of the party, because you need the party to go pull a ballot and vote for you. And in Cincinnati, I have to flip voters and get these independents to go pull a Republican ballot in order for me to win my primary race. And now I'm in a 4-way primary. So yeah, it's heavy competition. I am the first Black Republican to run for this seat. No woman has ever won it, but I'm excited. I'm a different type of candidate, and I've got some great support behind me as far as people, because now they're looking for those outsiders that, aren't endorsed, those that speak a different language and are really for the people. And we're starting to see that within the party. Like, oh my goodness, things are changing.
Right. Before we get into
the party is beginning to get like everybody else. They want to see something new instead of something picked for them behind closed doors and what do they used to call it? Smoke-filled rooms. But I guess they're healthier these days.
Yeah.
Not so much smoke.
Yeah, there was a lot of kickback recently because the Ohio Republican Party endorsed in the primary, and people were like asking, like, don't endorse. The primary is where you battle it out. And we had a lot of those seats endorsed. There was a lot of kickback when they endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy, and now there's 2 other people in that Republican race for governor. And so it's really fired up, and the base is like, it forces the base to get to know the candidate, and just not vote the ticket. And I'm excited about that, because if you just vote the ticket, you might miss out on opportunities.
You mind if I use that? I'm director of communications for a lady here in Memphis, Charlotte Bergman, who's also running as a black woman for the Republican nomination for Congress. Uh, say that again. I like that one.
I don't even know what I said. Look, I would just be talking. What did I say?
About voting the ticket and not.
Yeah, like I mean, just voting a traditional ticket, you'll miss opportunities to support candidates that might actually have your voice. So I think the party is saying something like "vote outsider," hashtag "vote outsider," so that again, you're not just voting for the standard.
Vote the candidate, not the ticket.
Yeah, like so, look at the person and not necessarily the party ticket. And so because the endorsed candidate might not even match your views or your religious beliefs. Yesterday, I talked to a person that was a judge and he's like, Rosemary, you're a Christian. And he's like, I'm gonna vote my religion. And the person that has maybe raised the most money in my race doesn't align with their, this judge's religious values or his personal ones. But this is the one they're kind of like trying to catapult forward in front of everybody. And they're like, no, this girl is very different. She has something to say. She has a light and she has roots and in the community, and she understands the people and what we need in Ohio's first district. And so I'm excited to have those people come forward and be like, hey, let's invite her in some more rooms.
May I give you a suggestion I've given my candidate, which is when you're growing up, whether you grew up in a Jewish community, Italian one, Irish, black community, and you had a neighborhood pick up ball game at the park or something, did you choose the people on your team based on what they looked like or how they could perform? Mm-hmm. And if you say, well, we try to get the best team so we can beat the other guys, then that is in the rest of life. Why should you go around trying to get your team just because of their ethnicity rather than their capacity?
Exactly.
So you can say, I'm capable. I'm not offering myself just because of my demographic description is what I can do for you.
All Red has already stated, we encourage each and every one of you to remain resilient. We cannot allow this type of behavior to be rewarded because so long as they know that they can win, even if it means cheating, then they will continue to do it. So I am asking you, I am begging you to make sure that you go ahead and figure out where it is that you are supposed to vote, stand in line, wait in line.
So that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do. And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why. So I want you to enjoy yourselves, but I won't be back tonight because I have no idea of when we're going to get results, and I fully anticipate it won't be until tomorrow. So I love y'all too. Thank you so very much for being here. Love you down. I love you down, Dallas.
Yeah, and I think we all saw that with the race with Jasmine Crockett. I was very late. I mean, from an outsider looking in, she never talked about her policy. She never talked about what she was going to do. It was this TDS, and it was, I'm Black, and you saw the code switching in different rooms. And when people actually asked me, how can I get people to vote for me? I said, I'm going to talk about my policies. I'm going to talk about the work that needs to be done. I'm not going to spend my days talking about what the propaganda wants to push me to talk about, because there are greater things happening in Southwest Ohio. And I need to talk about this. I need to talk about the Rosemary Red Standard. And I think that Jasmine Crockett, they didn't cheat her you cheated yourself because you had this unique opportunity to be a voice and talk about what you would do differently in that seat. And it just fell flat because, and to shout out discrimination, race, all the other things. Here's a person that says there's no voter fraud, and now you're yelling voter fraud and
Yeah, isn't that ironic? And the other thing too, you're trying to play that sister girl thing, and your daddy, a preacher, sent you to a finishing school instead of high school with the $50,000 a year. You went to a private college in Memphis, Tennessee, Rhodes College, which, by the way, since she appeals to the woke crowd, you know what it used to be known as?
What is
the
that?
Masonic University of Tennessee. So how does that resonate with her demographic? It doesn't.
Exactly.
And when you examine her record, what did she do other than say, you should support whatever I do because of my description? And she didn't do anything. So I always said, and I've said, she had about a chance of the proverbial snowball escaping from hell with going into this trying to expect to run. And I think maybe it was just to set up something about they picked on me because I am. No, you just don't have any capacity to do anything. So even if it was an all black situation, I wouldn't vote for you because you don't have what you need to do what you're supposed to do. But
I want to go in here. The whole sister girl era. I said this when I did a show yesterday. Is done with. It's over. I think Kamala sucked the life out of that because you did see a lot of black women voices in politics, more on a Democrat. And then but now that I'm starting to see Black people, particularly Black women, running for office on a Republican. So we have you in Ohio. We have two people running in the state of Illinois, one for Senate and one for Congress, the House. And I had both of them on the show as well. And honestly, the difference is you guys are not running on identity politics.
No.
You know,
No.
you're running on and what the people need.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, I mean, I don't want anybody to, while I am the first Black Republican to get on a ticket or whatever, I don't want the vote because I'm Black and because you should vote for me because, no, I challenge both sides. Look at my resume. Look at the work that I've done in Ohio and nationally. Ask me questions, research me, get to know me, the candidate, outside of just my race. And more than that, I grew up in the hood, and I always tell people I go between cussing and Christ, but whether I'm in front of you or whether the cameras are off, you're going to get the same Rosemary across the board. And that's what people know. So when you go to playing against social norms and emulating the negative aspects of Black culture, and that's what Jasmine Crockett did. So for me being a person, I was highly offended when you would do all of this and child, and it's like you are one of the most, you have more education than you're in the top, 3 or 5% of Americans that have master's degrees, and you have a legal degree, you have a law degree. And so you don't have to emulate the negative views of Black culture in order to fit in. But that shows me that there's an identity issue with you, because I'm going to be Miss Rosemary regardless of what room I walk in, and I
agree with you. That's profound. You put it well. We don't assign hero status to Jackie Robinson for being hired because he was Black to play for the Dodgers. We say, wow, this guy was the best, and that's why they hired him. My classmate, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, is the GOAT for the NBA, but they didn't hire him because he was Black. They hired him because of what he could do. Yes. Also, it's like the well-rounded nature. He's a scholar. He writes scholarly books. Jackie Robinson, was a scholar at UCLA and an Army officer in World War II. So we forget that he was somebody that was one of the first to refuse to go to the back of the bus, but
Right.
he was just coming off duty, so he pulled his pistol out and said, somebody's going to die tonight for me. He didn't go peacefully.
Right.
But you see, we forget these indicia of excellence because over the last 50 years, we've been constantly bombarded with dogma and propaganda that says
Yeah.
you're supposed to get it just because of what you are, even if you're lazy, shiftless,
Yeah.
stupid, pathetic, and ignorant.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about being one of the extraordinary. To be your Jordan, to be your your Whitney Houston, to be extraordinary. Even Barack, it takes an extraordinary person to get to a position of president. You only choose one, every 4 years. And I'm not saying he was the best at what he did, but imagine the will and the forcefulness and resilience to be able to get through all of those levels of bias, discrimination, of attacks. And I think that Jasmine Crockett forgot that, definitely, because you took Facebook popularity as though those would equate to votes. And I learned as a CEO, Facebook likes don't equate to dollars when you're running a nonprofit. I can like you, but that doesn't mean I'll vote for you. And as my representative, I want someone that can speak at a table where you're not yelling over that table, but you'll listen because you have facts, not rhetoric. And your facts shouldn't come from Fox News. Your facts should be coming from the Treasury, or your facts should be coming from Congress.gov, or, but reputable facts from Google Scholar, not Wikipedia. And I think that she did not do a fair representation of women that are educated. And as I run this race, that's what I represent. My facts and figures, you can look them up. They're defined. They are not off of rhetoric and propaganda. You must set a standard. And we have always, if we're going to talk about Black people, had to set a standard that was above bar. And that's what I want to represent.
So let me.
By the way, you look like a scholar. You look like somebody that is knowledgeable. You're good looking, but you don't go around with 3-inch long fake eyebrow lashes flapping around and looking obviously like you either have a wig or a weave on, and then with 2 tons of makeup on your face. You go around trying to flutter around like you grew up in the streets, which is nowhere close to your background. So I mean, it's fake.
Going back to the Texas race, when you look at Tellerico and Jasmine Crockett, and I do want to touch on the Republican side because that's a mess down in Texas. But he touched on everything you just laid out as a candidate. He spoke to the people. He spoke to the policies. She did not. She was just anti-Trump. She did insult Latino voters, and she called Texas a racist state, and white people don't want to be called racist. And in Texas, you're going to need some of those, not a lot, but some of those Republicans to vote blue in some elections. Tellerico checked off all those boxes. And it did help that he was Latino, but he didn't lead with that. So going forward, and then now when we look to the Republican, they have to go to a runoff. One of them is begging Trump will endorse me to make him drop out. It's a mess on the Republican side. So what do you think that the Republicans should do? Because people throughout the nation is looking at this Texas, because this is a midterm year. So what should people take from Texas, whether you're running for office or you're a voter, going forward?
Well, there are real issues here in America in these districts. And so you have to tell what you're going to do when you get in there. And if you're an incumbent and the perspective from American people are, I'm just going to rubber stamp everything. Your challenge is getting away from that rubber stamp. And are you going to speak for the people? Because we have some real challenges out here. While we have had some success within the Republican Party, people don't see that. So you have to highlight the successes, and not in a way where everything is Trump, 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 Trump. No, this is the policy. This is the success in our district. This is the way we're going to move forward in order to address this. And like I said, as I run for Ohio District 1, people are like, we're hurting here because of this administration. Well, from the person that is sitting on the outside, some of the policies that have been set forward, it's not that they are negative. It's just that we need to put in strategies and a plan with how we can implement them so that they don't hurt certain demographics in our districts. And so you need someone to be able to have a seat at the table that understands that and can get that done. And so that's what I'm running on. And I'm telling people, I'm not asking you to vote Republican. I'm asking you to flip that seat Rosemary red, because I'm the person that can do that job. And this is how. And here's my plan. It is written out and you can read it. And I'm telling people, read past 150 characters. Go read my plan, get to know me, and no other candidate can do that. Even the fluff that the incumbent is putting out, his plans don't match my plans because they're not realistic. They're fluff. And we're tired of people just blowing smoke. We need somebody that can really create change and are listening to the people in their district, and they know how to implement that.
It's something. Have you ever thought of pointing out to your constituents that since you've actually been through the trenches, you have a different perspective on those who are just faking it? And also the fact that you have successfully navigated all of those pitfalls gives you a certain kind of character boost that a lot of people lack. That's something that's a selling point.
Yeah, like, I mean, the people that I'm my opponent, and including the incumbent, like my opponents, for example, they weren't raised really in Ohio. Like, you went to school here, you went away from college, and then you came back and you decided to jump in the race. I was actually born here, raised here, went to college here, set up my business here to be able to support young people. And then the opponents I'm running against, they're younger than me. So my experience and wisdom, that wisdom comes with age, and it comes with going through things. So if everything's been kind of handed to you and you haven't experienced living in Ohio and going through some of those concerns and barriers that you have to raising children, even, you know, my opponents, 2 of them don't even have children. And yeah, like, they don't have children. So it's like, how are you supposed to talk about education when you haven't had to put a child through the public school system or even homeschool your kids like I have? You know, the incumbent, you know, building a nonprofit, actually having to show return on investment and people investing in your vision and in your dream, and then even having to walk through the red tape of building a business from nothing. But the greatest obstacle is I was a teen mom, you know, and to have to go from moving past how people stereotype you of what you're going to be and who you are when you choose to parent, and moving past that so that it doesn't keep you bound and stuck. That is the ultimate flex that you can't make up. That's you know, that's resilience defined within you. And then when you help your family break those cycles so that none of your kids are teen parents, and then you reach back further to overcome obstacles so that you can help other people, that is a resume that I can't make up. That's not a tone or a dialect that says, hey, I went through it. It is in your aura. It is in the presentation of how you write policy. It isn't how you speak, because you're speaking from a place of hardship, pain, and overcoming. And you can't fake that funk, and nobody can write that, not even Chat GPT, which a lot of them are using.
Oh. By the way, something you might deal with that new and inexperienced is better is, look, you haven't been around in life long enough to see if what you think is right is actually successful, because there's not been enough time for it to develop. So you may be going down the wrong pathway. Another thing, it's like dealing with kids. How many of you are in the sixth grade? Hold your hands up. All right. You remember what it was like being in the fifth grade? Yeah, okay. How many of you are in the fifth grade? You know about the fifth grade, you can tell a fourth grader, right? Well, can you tell yourself what it's going to be like in the sixth grade? No, because you haven't been there yet. See, your teachers and your parents and all of the folk that are in charge, they've been where you have been. They've gone through the experiences you will go through, and they know what the results is going to be, and they can give you guidance as to how to navigate those pathways successfully. See, you can throw that at your opponents when they start talking about that youthful newness. Hey, look, if you haven't had to get up when you don't feel like it, when you feel sick and the sun isn't even up, and you got to get these kids up, feed them, get them dressed, get in the car, hit the traffic, and get them there, and then get back to your job, you don't know what you're talking about because you don't empathize with your constituents very well.
Yeah.
So listen, before I let you go, what's important is money when you're running for office as well.
Money.
It takes money to have a successful campaign, to run a successful campaign, and to win in some instance, on top of having good policies and speaking to the people. So me and the judge, we want to encourage people to go to your website. That's www.votemissrosemary.com. The link is in the description, and the link is going to be in the comment section to donate and vote to your campaign, whether you live in Ohio or not. If you don't live in Ohio, the best thing you could do is donate money. If you live in District 1, vote and also donate what you can. And Judge, you can speak to that as well, the importance of donating, correct?
Yes, I can.
Now, I want you to
Put
tell
up
people.
a show. In other words, the constituents are in a position of putting up or shutting up. In other words, if you want your candidate to get over, make sure that you help him or her.
Right.
We depend on all of this complex advertising. It used to be 30 years ago, 35 years ago, if you just walked around and knocked on doors, you can do something. Now you may run into a maniac, so you can't do that. But you can try, but it's lots more difficult now.
Canvassing is still I'm grassroots. Unlike my opponents, I was not able to self-fund my campaign. And when, people approach me with that, like, hey, are you going to self-fund? And I was like, well, I put several thousands of dollars, but unlike my counterparts, I can't put $250,000 into my campaign, 300. I was a mother building a nonprofit and raising kids and putting my kids through school. And I'm like, while I may not be like the urban core where they're one paycheck away from being homeless, I have a savings and whatnot, again, understanding our districts. But again, when you put people in office and you're able to not have any kids or be a new parent and you can put $250,000 in, I applaud that, but that's not the way this works. So being that I already had every notch against me when I decided to run. I'm Black. No woman's ever won. I'm a Republican, in a very, and we just redistricted into an area that nobody really knows. You have to come up with a strategic plan. And that's where education, wisdom, and connecting with people matter, and asking people, who do you know? Who can I get in front of your friends to have these conversations? Will you knock on doors with me? Will you call your friends and say, hey, I know you might not normally vote red, but I need you to vote Rosemary red. Or I know that right now you might not be happy within the Republican Party with this candidate, but have you taken a look at Miss Rosemary? She's different. She's a perfect blend of old school and new. And that's where that defining age, where I've got a 30-year-old daughter, kind of kicks in, because you understand where our economy is going and where society is going, but you're also old enough to have had grandparents and parents and have experienced enough to know where we came from. And a lot of times, if we don't look at history, we have a tendency to repeat it. And that's what you're bringing into that position. And so when it comes to money and funding, people are like, oh, they got $30 million. They got whatever. I'm not saying I need that, but I do need yard signs. I do need marketing materials that cost dollars. And I'm a nonprofit person. I'm a conservative for a reason, because I look at a dollar like it's my own, because that's how I'm spending it. So I take those dollars and I use it for the most economically sound ways in order to run my campaign, the same as I'll run when I'm in Congress. These are your dollars, and I'm going to spend them accordingly. And nobody has any money to waste or burn, especially in this economy.
Right. Listen, I definitely want to have you come back, because there's more stuff for us to talk about. And your primary election is in May, correct?
May the 5th, early voting. So this is another thing that these people failed at in the primary. There's been a lot of redistricting. Vote early. Early voting in Ohio begins April the 7th. Go online to the Board of Elections, find your precinct, get your ID. We can go all day about what you need to bring. Bring your ID. If you vote early, you don't have to run into those barriers of, oh, my ID doesn't match my address. For them to say that there's disenfranchisement with the vote, there should be no excuse when our forefathers actually fought for us to have that right to vote. And so do whatever it takes in order to vote. Your vote does matter, and voting does have consequences. So vote early. April the 7th, if you see me, talk to me, you like me, you go vote that day. Don't wait, because the excuse of the lines were too long and the board, it was the traffic, and or somebody else gonna do it, or I know somebody. No, it's not them, it's you. And it's your responsibility if you truly want to see change in that office.
Definitely going to have you come back before early voting starts, so we could get people out there. And thank you again for coming.
No, thank you.
Hey, I enjoyed it. I like you. I just said I like what you have up there. I like what you're saying. It sounds
and encourage, and that's what I'm saying. We're going to encourage people to support, donate, and get out and vote. So definitely going to have you back before the early voting. Thank you again, Rosemary.
Yes, thank you so much. April 7th, I'll see everybody in Ohio at the polls.
All righty. Have a good one.
Thanks so much.
Next time. So yes, let's get into Iran. My question for you, are we winning? Are we winning?
Yes. See, look, the best way to explain Iran, U.S., Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, etc., is that all of them have a problem with Iran. Iran is the product of religious fanaticism, which is not a good thing in the modern world. It never has been, because it results in witches being burned at the stake and crusades being waged and jihad being employed and all sorts of things, or ethnic cleansing and such like, and it's usually not healthy. But what's going on is this: irrespective of all these other things, it's an act of national self-defense, which is essentially the same as it is for individual self-defense. You're walking along and somebody comes up on you and they do things like go suddenly under their coats like they're going to draw a gun, and their intentions look to be hostile. You don't have to wait until somebody shoots at you. You can come up with a preemptive strike if what is leading up to that is reasonable. So the jury gets an instruction, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. If a person is put in a situation by an assailant that causes that individual to have a reasonable belief that they are about to be subjected to death or serious bodily harm, they may react to prevent it. They do not have to await the actual commencement, let alone the conclusion of an attack. If a person's observations are reasonable to you, they may, in other words, The guy went under his coat under the circumstances. I thought I was going to be shot. I pulled out my gun and I shot him. Now, if a nation is in a situation where they're confronted by another nation or entity that says, we're going to get you, and they seem to be engaged in activity that would lead somebody reasonable to say they're going to attack us, the nation under international law does not have to wait until they actually get attacked. They are entitled to engage in a preemptive strike, just like the person who engages in self-defense is entitled to engage in a preemptive attack. Somebody pulls a pistol and pulls the trigger, you don't have but a fraction of a second before you've been fatally injured. So you can't await that. And with nukes these days, all you got to do is launch one or have one planted, and there's big trouble. Now, when you look at what's going on with Iran, long story short, you're seeing a preemptory strike. The elimination of the Ayatollah in question takes away the head of the Hydra that is most likely to order the attack, and also a lot of his henchmen, and sends a message to others that says, you think about this, you do this, you got a taste of what will happen if you want to stay alive, back off of it. Now, why do we have that to worry about? Well, because of the open border policy of the Biden-Harris administration that was designed to keep California, New York, New Jersey from losing probably 6 congressional seats by 2030, according to census projections. They opened the borders, but everybody that hated us, from Hamas to ISIS to Al Qaeda, they're the guys that did the Twin Tower thing on 9/11, they've been allowed to walk across the border armed with military grade explosives. They've had 4 years to plant them, install their high-tech detonation devices, and all they're doing is awaiting instructions to flip the switch and watch the fireworks. So what Mr. Trump is doing is simply saying, to keep those fireworks from happening, let's take the people out who are in a position to give the orders to set off the fireworks. And it's a matter of national defense. Now, to keep this in context, at the end of World War II, the United States had 3 atomic bombs, 2 plutonium bombs, and 1 U-235, uranium-235. That was the little boy, and it was obvious that the science was so clear and what they did that it was going to work. They didn't need to test one. But the plutonium bomb was a different kind of thing that required the installation of a small core and surrounded it by a shell of imploding explosives, and they didn't know if that was going to work. So they sacrificed one bomb and blew it up. It worked, and then they dropped the little boy on Hiroshima, and then the fat man, the big one, plutonium bomb on Nagasaki. The problem was that's all the bombs that we had, and it took us about 6 months to make the next bomb. So a lot of what we were saying was bluff about what we were going to do if Japan didn't capitulate after the first 2 were dropped. But it's the same kind of situation. Just 2 bombs, one of 16 kilotons explosive yield and one of 18, brought one of the most fanatical militaries into a condition where the emperor surrendered the country. Now, 16 kilotons means the equivalent of 16,000 tons of TNT. Today, the technology has so drastically ramped up that it's not much for somebody to make a 250 kiloton bomb, which is 250,000 tons of TNT versus 16, without any more difficulty than it was building the 16 kiloton Thin Man
Let
bomb,
me,
which is
let me,
what they
let me,
called it. So
let me.
that would be devastating to the United States if one was detonated here. So you don't have the option of saying, we're going to wait till something happens. It's in place to happen. And the intelligence network is saying it will happen unless something's done. One more point on this. There is a fallout that is very negative to what has been going on in places like Minnesota, where you had all of these Somalian claims that were fraudulent for the disbursement of funds, say, for child care purposes. Our intelligence network has revealed or discovered that between 180 and about 260, going on $300 million of those funds have been channeled to, in fact, affiliates of Al Qaeda, the same people that brought you 911. So what is this? We're not only being defrauded, or Minnesota's not only being defrauded, there's a Democratic Party, a Democratic mayor, not mayor, a Democratic governor who says, let us give it to them. And like, where is it going, fool? Did anybody think that somebody who is sophisticated would look at this Bozo Act and say, hey, we need funding for our operations. We have to pay for what Al Qaeda does: transportation, raw materials, guns, ammunition, explosives, you name it. 250 million, $300 million, and we can get some damn fool government in Minnesota, United States of America, to give it to us? Oh, wow, whoopee.
So Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, since the launch of Operation Epic Fury, more than 9,000 Americans have safely returned home from the Middle East. If you are a U.S. citizen in the Middle East, you want to come home, please register with the State Department at step.state.gov. The department will identify where you are and provide travel options to you. We are already charting flights free of charge and booking commercial options, which we expect will become increasingly available as time goes on. When I was going through his whole timeline, he says, pray for our troops. He has not put boots to the ground. However, it's a lot of bombing that is going on. And he has a timeline here of the first 24 hours of Operation Epic Fury. On the 21st of February, H-hour, President Donald Trump calls Joint Chief of Staff General Dan Kane, directing him the Operation's Epic Fury is approved. On the 28th, more than 100 aircraft launched from land and sea. More than 1,000 Iranian targets struck. Up to 48 leaders killed. Types of target: command and control centers, IRGC joint headquarters, IRGC Aerospace Forces headquarters, ballistic missile sites, Iranian Navy ships, Iranian Navy submarines, anti-ship missiles. But it's funny because a school with schoolgirls, over 100 of them, it was hit with a bomb and killed schoolgirls.
That's collateral damage.
Well, let me say this. Collateral damaged my ass because who made that mistake? No matter if you agree or not, no matter if you're just pro-war, pro-Trump, no matter what, that's not the point. It doesn't matter if that was Obama or if that was Bush or if that's Biden sitting in that Oval Office. You started this. So how can a school with schoolgirls? I think that needs explanation, and we have not gotten one. That's all I'm asking for. That means somebody made an error mistake of where this bomb was going to land, or that was actually one of the sites that you knew you had to bomb because maybe Iran put some type of military headquarters next to that building or in the basement, or maybe they were hiding out certain Iranian leaders there, because countries are known to do that, to hide under the cover of civilians. But what I'm saying here is, if you want to win and if you want to say you want to right for striking Iran first, how about you give an explanation? Because you toting this, I want to liberate the people of Iran. And a lot of people want to be liberated, but people do not want to see dead bodies of innocent young girls, because now people are going to get flashbacks of the genocide that took place in Palestine.
Can you give us an update on what the administration knows, what you know now about the reported strike on a girls' school in southern Iran on Saturday?
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that. Red tie in front.
Just on the basis that with the information you would have, your reconnaissance abilities, ability to gather information, I mean, it's several days on now. So is there any clarity on whose munition this was?
We're investigating it. Thank you.
I think this administration, Pete Hegseth and others, when he does his briefings, needs to give an explanation of, was that a mistake that the school was targeted, or was Iranian leaders hiding and operating out of that school? That's what I'm talking about, because that can't continue to happen. I'm done.
Okay. You are walking down the street and some characters decide to do an armed robbery of a convenience store. They go in, say, stick them up. The manager of the store gets his gun, and there's a shootout. The manager of the store shoots you because a bullet goes through the glass in the front of the store and badly wounds you or kills you. Who's at fault for you dying or being wounded? The guy that shot you is the manager, or the people who started the mess, who are the armed robbers? The answer under American law is embraced in what they call the felony murder rule. The ones that caused the felony that resulted in the death are the ones that are responsible for the death. Iran is the felon in this case that started the mess, and if somebody innocent gets killed, the homicide or the death goes on their shoulders because they started it. It's self-defense, one-on-one, several-on-one, individuals, and it certainly applies on the national scheme. It's called collateral damage. And there is an expected amount of collateral damage, and that goes to the point that they brought up in the Nuremberg trials, or the responsibility for the Holocaust. If you sat there and supported this government that did this, then you have some responsibility for the consequences. That's what we had for our collaboration with Britain in World War II, when the Army Air Force and the Royal Air Force collaborated on 24/7 round-the-clock bombing of Germany. It was to show the German people that by supporting the Nazis, they were in fact complicit in what was going on. And if their children, infants, old folk, relatives, and friends got blown up, then that's because that's what happens when you are responsible for this administration or your regime being what it is. It's how war works. It's since day one when we had our first tribe or cave going against another one. These things happen. It's unfortunate. It's like driving 65, 70 miles an hour down a freeway. Accidents occur, and the collateral damage is people die or get maimed. So that's one of the things that is a reality. So if you are upset about the children dying, you have to question the regime that set in motion the things that led to them dying. You can't expect somebody to say, hey, you've been bragging, boasting, and threatening to do anything you can to harm us. You are building frantically nukes that you can do great damage to us. We aren't supposed to sit around and wait for you to do it, just like a person who's being assaulted by someone who's about to commit an act that causes great bodily injury or death to them. They can react as soon as it becomes reasonable to conclude that that's what the circumstance is. So Iran did this, and the reaction of the U.S. government was to, hey, you're going to get it. And I'm sorry if we misaimed, like the shopkeeper isn't trying to hit the guy walking down the street. He's shooting at a bandit, but he misses, and the bullet miscarries and kills an innocent bystander. It's not the shopkeeper, it's the bandits that get blamed. And that's the same situation we have right here.
There are no when we're talking about politicians and people who give the green light to start a war, no matter what side, Middle East, West, it doesn't matter. They're not heroes. There are no winners. There are no winners. That's what I'm saying when it comes to war. There are now
an F-35.
Soldiers are heroes, to a certain degree. Yes, I give them respect, but make no mistake about it. He says 4 to 6 weeks. If this goes longer than 6 weeks, then he could kiss the midterms in 2028. This is going to affect his legacy, because even though we're talking about the average American, the average human being here, and optics matter. Now, you put 50,000. The Department of War, the War Department had 50,000 troops on standby. Israeli troops already invaded, I believe, Lebanon and China. China is not directly involved in the Iranian war, but as of March, it says China is not directly involved military in the war against Iran, instead acting as a diplomat and economic lifeline for Tehran. Beijing has criticized U.S.-Israel attacks as violations of international law, demanding an end to the fighting while providing indirect support through technology, drone components, and continued purchase of Iranian oil. Russia, as of March 2026, Russia is not directly involved in a war between Iran, but the U.S. and Israel, with the Kremlin stating it is not our war, and having no intention to intervene militarily. While Russia and Iran are strategic partners, the conflict has not triggered a military alliance, and Moscow is focused on its own war in Ukraine. I just want to highlight
so much
that.
Political garbage.
Also, Trump says U.S. Navy could escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz. So he announced on social media Tuesday that the U.S. military could help shipping vessels through an embattled sea passage as the war against Iran rages on. He offered possibility of naval assistance and called upon the United States Development Finance Corporations to provide risk insurance that will guarantee the financial security of maritime trade operating near the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman.
There is some responsibility that people have to take when they mismanage the trust that has been put on their shoulders to run a government, and that's what's going on in Iran. Iran once was at the very leading edge of westernization in the Mediterranean area when it came to the Islamic republics and nations. The Shah was trying to push this. The Ayatollahs came in through Ayatollah Khomeini. He led a revolution and he imposed the Islamic fundamentalist fanaticism on this country. And as far as a lot of people who lived there were concerned, really set things back. And you saw these unaltered images of women tearing off their burqas and the people celebrating there. So there is the opportunity to start a revolt. Now, back to your original thing about hitting the school, I would bring your attention to what happened right around D-Day in France in June 1944, when the American Navy stood off from the Normandy shore and started shelling. They hit some schools, they hit some residences, they hit some village areas. But the French were accepting of that damage, that collateral damage, because they knew that the yoke of oppression that the Nazis had put upon them was about to be overthrown. Now, what's going on in the Middle East? Let's just take one of our two nuclear aircraft carriers there, the Gerald Ford. You have a situation with the aircraft carrier, the nuclear aircraft carrier, Gerald Ford, which is one of the two that are in the region. One's in the Mediterranean and the other one is in the Persian Gulf. That aircraft carrier all by itself can deliver the devastation that the entire Navy of the United States of America was capable of delivering at the end of World War II, probably for the last 2 years of the war all at one time. That brought down Japan. That would exterminate Iran if the full scope of that offensive power were brought down on the country. We have a thing where the entire Middle East is impacted negatively by Iran. Most of the Arabic nations there want to get rid of Iran. Israel wants to get rid of Iran. Their internal situations more or less dictate what kind of overt response they can give to the situation. Israel is not being the pariah that it usually is for the Middle East right now, because they're serving a function of getting rid of Iran. Internally, most of these states are poo-pooing it or saying something negative about it, but they're collaborating on making it happen. But you can't put this kind of stuff out there. So what you run into is when somebody's got a nuke or is soon to have one, you have trouble because just one, let alone 2, 3, 4, or 5 nukes in the 100,000 or plus kiloton range would just be totally unacceptable in today's world. So you can't let that happen. And the Biden-Harris administration, with what they did with the open borders, set the stage for that not only happening unless something was done to intervene like it has been, guaranteeing it. Now, the time period that we have with the 5 weeks is predicated most likely on a prediction of when Iran is going to run out of ammunition. Our situation, because of the Biden-Harris and before that the Obama-Biden administrations with their cutting back of production of our offensive missile inventory and certain aircraft like the F-22 have put us in a situation where our stocks of the heavy ammunition become marginal, particularly with the distribution to the Ukraine that we have seen over the last 5 years. China is waiting in the wings because it has its sights on Taiwan. And as of a few months ago, the U.S. inventory was sufficient under some predictions to be capable of about 4 or 5 days of hot fire against any effort by the Chinese to invade Taiwan. Now it's being reduced down to maybe 2 or 3 days. And it will take somewhere 5, 6, 10 years at the ordinary rate of production to restock our stockpile of necessary weapons. We are going to have Congress implement an emergency program to build back our inventory, or otherwise we are in a problem. And China is sitting back to see how long this will last. Now, the threat of boots on the ground is not likely to be a long-term invasion. It is likely to be, if anything, something along the lines of Gulf War I, which was over in a few weeks between 1990 and 1991 in an air campaign. Now, remember that this fanatical military that belonged to Imperial Japan got brought to its knees by the B-29 air offensive, where more casualties were inflicted by firebombing, many, many more, and 2 nukes. Now, with much more capacity than that to be brought to bear on an industrialized nation with urban centers that isn't just raw desert or scrub, then the impact of military aviation will be a lot greater and is quite capable of crippling Iran or bringing it to a conference table, and also acting as the impetus to have an overthrow of the current regime. So there's a lot to be said political science-wise for what's been going on, and the formula that I'm looking at has been a successful one over the years.
Yeah, as far as I know, I think I would be the only Democrat to vote it against that, and I just don't understand where I'm at. So, as far as I know, every single senator says we must never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear facility and a weapon. And now I think we all agree on that. Why can't you just acknowledge, hey, that's really happened now? Then now they can't acquire those anymore. Why can't we just acknowledge that was a good thing and that the world's better now and more safe after what's happened? So as if that requires me as a Democrat to just condemn those kinds of things, I think we've all been saying that we want to make sure that they can never make Iranian a nuclear power.
The president says they're only doing it because.
So this is Federline basically saying here, vote no on the upcoming war powers vote, amend at limiting President Trump's authority over Iran. So I guess, of course, Democrats want to limit his powers, but he's
for their own selfish purposes.
So as far as the president's power, and I think you did touch on this on Monday's show, but briefly, very briefly, he does have some powers now because he's executing those powers. But what is the powers that Congress is trying to limit, or what powers that Congress may have to approve further?
Well, see, there is the War Powers Act of 1974. It's never been evoked. But on the contrary, under Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, the commander-in-chief is, without declaration of war or anything else, obligated to use the armed forces, specifically the naval forces of the United States, to supposedly, one, suppress, there's a nice phrase, let's see if I can remember it, to pursue, suppress, and eradicate piracy wherever found in the world. And also Article 1, Section 8 makes it the affirmative duty of the Commander-in-Chief and the Armed Services of the United States to, quote, enforce the law of nations. No, it's pursue, suppress, and eradicate piracy wherever found in the world. And that does not require a declaration of war. And if you want to see a historical recordation of the authority that's in that provision of the Constitution itself, you need look no more than the Marine Corps hymn. That little line, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, that shores of Tripoli thing is exactly the same thing, where the United States Congress gave the president the authority to use the U.S. Navy, which had been rebuilt, one of which example is the USS Constitution, ported in Boston Harbor, that was used to take on the Barbary pirates, and the Marine Corps invaded. Now, in international law and law of nations, what Iran is threatening to do to interfere with commerce going through the Persian Gulf is exactly what is defined by international law as piracy. So the United States is required under Article 1, Section 8 of its own Constitution to take it on. That's why we have active military or naval action off of the coast of East Africa to deal with the piracy that's coming out of Kenya. There's no need for a declaration of war. The Constitution mandates it. And then there's Article 6 of the Constitution that says ratified treaties are part of the supreme law of the land. They consist of a body of treaty agreements that declare what's going on over there right now relative to the behavior of Iran to be inappropriate, inimical, et cetera, So under those treaty obligations, the United States, without further ado, has an obligation to react. And because Article 1, Section 8 makes those things part of the, quote, law of nations, unquote, there is an affirmative obligation to act right now that rests on the shoulders of the president. So that kind of thing would obviate the political rhetoric that is being bussed around out there by the ignorant who have no clue as to what our constitutional law is, what the treaty situations are, nor the military and naval circumstances that are attendant upon the current situation. So he's on all squares about what's going on. The United States has done this on multiple occasions. One of them is what General John J. Blackjack Pershing did in 1916 when the U.S. Army crossed the southern border to find Pancho Villa, who had raided American towns a few weeks before and killed a number of people. Now, that's just the way international law works. They used to call it gunboat diplomacy. In other words, if you had the power, you sent in some naval gunboats, that is minor naval warcraft, and you shelled a few strategic places, killed a few people, and said, hey, you'll get a lot worse if you keep this up. And somebody says, oh, yeah, okay, we get it. Sorry about that. And then what you do is have internal propaganda talking about these horrible this, that, and the others are so bad. They did this, that, and the other, but you shut your mouth and go on and cooperate. So there's a lot behind this, including what BRICS is going to get out of this, if anything, and also to deal with something that comes straight out of the hood. As far as it goes, the United States has been selling wolf tickets for a long time. In other words, hey, man, I'm going to do so-and-so. Yeah, you want to really do this? Let's see. And somebody is saying, okay, I don't believe you. I don't think your fat meat is greasy. So let's see if I step on it and I slide. I don't think I will. So that's what you have here. The U.S. has been selling wolf tickets because we've been dealing with third world situations where our opposition, no way, no how, has the background wherewithal, like Iran does, to infiltrate their operatives inside the continental United States, place them strategically and tactically where they're wanted, and have them armed with explosives that can do great devastation to the country, and to have access to nukes. We can't let that happen.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please go and support, donate, and vote for Rosemary out of Ohio. Go to her website, donate. And if you live in District 1, Ohio, go and vote. Very important. And thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good night.